Hello. You shouldn't do everything yourself, and you shouldn't do anything cheaply unless you're a super skilled, really actually verified, bona fide, skilled filmmaker, director who's made features that have actually gone places, been distributed, maybe even won an award. Here's why you shouldn't do things yourself for the purpose of the advancement of your career. It's fun to put a little skit together with your friends. It's fun to beg, borrow, steal, and devise a script, go out and execute it with amateur filmmakers. Or a guy who calls himself a cinematographer, but what he really does is he shoots, videos for real estate. And he has a microphone. And he can edit. Why is that terrible? For you and the way you look professionally. Why is that not good for your YouTube page? Unless that's the whole shtick, right? Let me explain. Everybody, since the history of cinema, is used to seeing movies and TV shows at a certain level. And TV already has gotten so good. And nobody cares when they see a piece of media if you did it for $500 or for $50,000. Nobody cares. Nobody cares if you did it all yourself and you can go around saying, yeah, but the sound's kind of shitty because, we did it all ourselves. Then nobody cares. They're just not going to like it. They're just going to think, oh, that looks kind of amateur. That's all. That's all they'll be thinking about. Oh, it's funny. It's kind of amateur, though. Oh, well. That's fun. You want people, let's say, okay, if that's the point, you have a YouTube channel, you're doing fun little sketches, you give it your best shot. You'll grow. You'll get better at it. If you're doing it for your reel, don't do that. Either do it right or don't do it. Because they're looking for something else. They're looking for something. They're looking for professional actors. And I have that in the last video that I uploaded. So give them that. Professionalism. Professionalism means good quality. If it's something that's sort of a low-budget thing, it needs to look low-budget like what we're used to. Low-budget being for indie films. Not low-budget like, no budget, low-budget, like sub-student film low-budget, like guy with a handy cam trying to make a regurgitation of Revolutionary Road. No. Not for your real, not for your professional life. For fun, for practice, great. So, and I'm going to come around and give you a solution too. Like, well, what do I do if I don't have money? All right. I hear you. The last point before that I want to make is, drum roll, doing everything yourself, which kind of coincides with cheap. A jack of all trades is a master of none. True in most cases. Some people I know are very talented at multiple things, okay? But you're not talented at everything. You're not a DP and an editor and an actor and a producer and a writer. And you could be, but you're not going to excel at all of those. So if you're showcasing your acting, focus on the acting. And have people around you be as professional as you want to look with what they're doing. Because acting is a collaborative thing. Why? Because you usually do it, unless it's a one-man show in a theater, with other people. Acting for screen, for camera, everything needs to be at the same level. If you have a good performance, why would you have shitty camera work? Bad sound, bad set design, poor lighting. Why? You're trying to showcase yourself at a certain level. It needs to match. Everything needs to match. You need a good cinematographer. You need to be directed. It needs to be lit right. There needs to be movement. Camera is not just record. Camera is a language. There are emotions being conveyed with the shots and the lighting. You need somebody who understands that. Direction is important. You lose perspective. You can't see the forest of all the trees. You need somebody tweaking you, adjusting you to make the scene work as a whole. Your scene partners are important. The script is important. Everything is important. The editing is important. Editing is a language. Pacing, relevance, there's so much to know. And if you just have a guy who knows how to use Adobe Premiere, that doesn't make him an editor. You have a girl who knows how to use a camera because she's a photographer. She doesn't know how to do cinematography. Photography and cinematography are not the same thing. And so on and so forth. So what's the solution? If you don't have resources to do something professionally, don't do it. Don't do that. I talk to a lot of filmmakers who want to make a movie for $500,000, for 50 grand, 20 grand. Can you make a movie for that? Sure you can. El Mariachi was made for $7,000. Technically, I have the fallacy of low-budget filmmaking, micro-budget filmmaking, that explains a little bit more about why that's not technically right. Like, it's not 7 grand. That was the cash that was needed, but a lot of favors, a lot of borrowed things, a lot of other things that if you add those up, the value is much higher. So, what can you beg, borrow, steal? Fine. What you do is you don't try to do what a lot of these people do, which is make Terminator 2 for 50 grand. Okay? Terminator 2 was the most expensive film of all time. You're not going to do that for 50 grand. So what do? You play into the fact that you don't have the resources, and you do something that looks and feels right in that regard. If the Blair Witch Project was made for 15 grand, well, they knew they didn't have resources to make a scary movie with cameras and all that, so they actually leaned so heavily into the fact that it was low budget that they didn't even bother with any of that. That the whole film was intentionally, the whole thing about the film was it's found footage. It was supposed to look amateur. So lean into what you have. If you want to create a scene that's a heavy drama and you want to showcase a certain, thing that you can do, I personally don't like just monologues because it's awkward for me. You're just like in a room with somebody who's like crying and giving you some Shakespeare. It makes me uncomfortable. I don't like watching those things. I know there's others who agree with me, and some people are like, okay, well, it's about the performance. I don't like that. So how do you showcase your dramatic skills when you don't have money to produce something professional and you don't just want to do a monologue? Well, you just need to lean in to what it is that you're doing. Like you could even, I would rather see 2 people in a room, the person who's about to do the scene say, this is a scene workshop, a scene study. I don't have a reel for this kind of role, but I wanted to play opposite somebody else so that you could see the dynamic of acting, and then cut in. I wouldn't spend a lot of time explaining that, but just like, hey, Daniel, staging a little scene here for you. Hope you like it. Camera comes around, somebody, okay, frames it up a little bit, normally with a cell phone, just a cell phone. Don't try to be fancy. Don't try to make it look like a movie set. Just, it is what it is. Give me the performance. Put a couple of cuts in there to see some reaction, just to make it like, okay, I gave a shit. I gave a shit about this. I don't have money. I'm not trying to make it look like it's something that it isn't. Now, that's my take on it. You're going to do Star Wars for $50. Make it fun and say, this is the spaceship. And then I'll buy it. But if you try and CGI a spaceship for $50, it's going to look atrocious. And that's my point. Don't try and do things yourself and for cheap that are not what they're supposed to be. If you can't afford to do it, don't do it. Do it differently. Solve it creatively. Don't try to fool anyone. Don't try to fool anyone unless you can actually fool them. And that's why with Dream Reach Media, with our productions, we don't fool anyone. We're not trying to fake it and say, hey, well, I was, we'll make a 30-second scene that looks like you're in some sort of a film. We make a film. We put a crew together. We make a 2-minute film. It has an arc. It's a short film. They win, they go to short film festivals all the time. They get accepted. They win, all that stuff. You make actual films. That's the difference. If you can't afford to make an actual film, don't make a film, please. Or train yourself. There's another video, time, quality, and money. You can choose two. One of them is going to give. So if you have no money and you want something quality, then it's going to take you time. You have to learn, you have to ask, you have to, really make sure, but you always have to make sure that you work with people who are good and qualified and talented in the position that they hold. And only that way are you going to be able to pull something off. And it's going to require a lot of asking and begging and connections and favors and whatnot. Maybe a little quid pro quo. Maybe you have to go clean their car for a month and they'll come shoot something for you. But it's got to be for somebody who's really good at shooting. Not, hey, they're an assistant to a wedding videographer. I think they could shoot my action scene that I want to do next week. So please stop with the crazy, terrible quality stuff that's meant to look like it's actually something. Just don't do it. Be more creative and lean into what you have or what you don't have. Or source the money. Hollywood throws money at problems for a reason. It's easier. Drive a lot of Uber and Lyft or join races. Yeah, what can I tell you? All right. Beg, borrow, steal, subscribe, like, dislike. I will see you soon. Thank you, guys.